blowout victories for Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump in New York. On the Democratic side, Clinton snapped Bernie Sanders' 7-state winning streak, declaring in her victory speech, "There's no place like home." Clinton, a two-term New York senator, beat out her Brooklyn-born rival, who insists he's taking his campaign to the convention. On the Republican side, Trump toppled his rivals, closing off any chance for Ted Cruz to win the nomination without a contested convention in July. Trump's New York victory puts him in a position to score more than 80 of the state's 95 delegates. Here with me to talk about all of this are CBSN political contributor and former John McCain campaign manager Rick Davis, CBSN political contributor and Republican strategist Leslie Sanchez, former senior communications director for the Mike Huckabee campaign, Hogan Gidley, and CBS News senior political editor Steve Shigaris. But first, while speaking at Trump Tower in New York City, Donald Trump told his supporters, "We don't have much of a race anymore."
This has been an amazing week all over New York State. We went to Syracuse, we went to Albany, 20,000 people. I mean, on average, we'd have 15 to 20,000 people. We went to Rochester, we went to Bethpage, we went all over. And you know what? The people of this country and the people of this state truly are great and amazing people. We are going to be so strong again. We are going to be really, I mean, legitimately so great again. And I just can't wait. So, we don't have much of a race anymore, based on what I'm seeing on television. Senator Cruz is just about mathematically eliminated. As you know, we have won millions of more votes than Senator Cruz, millions and millions of more votes than Governor Kasich. We've won, and now, especially after tonight, close to 300 delegates more than Senator Cruz. We're really rocking. We expect we're going to have an amazing number of weeks because these are places and they're in trouble. They're in big trouble. When you look at Pennsylvania, when you look at Indiana, when you look at Maryland and Rhode Island and so many places, we have problems everywhere you look. We are going to solve those problems. And one of the big problems is the economy and jobs, and that is my wheelhouse. So, again, I want to thank everybody. It's really nice to win the delegates with the votes. You know, it's really nice. So I want to just thank everybody. I have great admiration and praise for the city of New York and the state of New York. I can think of nowhere that I would rather have this victory.
All right, Donald Trump there speaking to his supporters during his campaign rally. Rick, let me start with you. How significant was this win in New York for Donald Trump?
Yeah, it was a big win. He was coming off a kind of spotty couple weeks, and it'll add momentum to his campaign. He's going to add some of the speculation by people that, well, if he's going to be the nominee, maybe we have to find common cause with him. There'll be a drift of some establishment people who will say, well, he's really on a trajectory to be the presumptive nominee, so maybe we got to think about getting on board. So it'll be big. It'll have all kinds of ramifications. And it's not a surprise that he'd win New York. It just came at a good time for his campaign.
Yeah, Leslie, when you look at these numbers, he won various categories of voters here, men, women, people who wanted an outsider, conservatives. What do you make of that?
Oh, it's a big win. It's kind of what Rick was talking about sooner, is when you win at that percentage, you're winning pretty much everybody. It's great to see him winning women. It's great to see, and these are going to probably be the few times that he actually is winning some of those groups that are definitely peeling off in any other national surveys. But you can't take anything away from that. And really the question is, it can help them getting into next Tuesday when you have a lot of states lining up, even though they're in the Northeastern Corridor and the Mid-Atlantic. Can he perform, at least close some of that gap that you see in New York?
Yeah, what about that question, Hogan?
He performed pretty well, excuse me, in a lot of those categories in other states as well. I think one of the reasons the margins are so big is something Rick pointed out before, which is it's his home state. So obviously he's going to perform a lot better here. What's interesting to me, too, as we finish out the evening, Ted Cruz came in third here, okay? And I think you might have pointed out even earlier, he might come in third in a few more states coming up as well, moving into some other northeastern states.
Yeah, and my argument is this garbles now that whole idea of who is the anti-Trump. It was coalescing behind Cruz for a while. He won Wisconsin. I think there was a sense that Cruz was really the number 2 here. Now 2 things have happened. One, he came in 3rd place. He's likely to come in 3rd place in some of these states next week. And he's all but mathematically eliminated from any chance of getting a majority of the delegates. So now his only argument moving forward is to take this to a contested convention. So he's now in John Kasich land, and it was actually a memo that went out from John Kasich's campaign manager that said, "Welcome to the club."
Yeah.
You know, and now now every vote that goes to Cruz is a vote for Trump. They're making the argument, they're trying to coalesce people behind Kasich, and Kasich now coming in 2nd in New York, and maybe he comes in 2nd in some of these states next week. Maybe he can start making the argument that if you're going to vote against Trump, look at this guy instead of Ted Cruz.
Well, that's again the enemy of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So it is like trying to do. Well, now you see the whole shift that those two are trying to reduce the support or the momentum of Cruz, which nobody could have seen that coming. Not until, well, maybe they could have. There were so many people that just disliked him, but he was getting the money and the support.
But at least Cruz, to this point, could at least make the argument that it's me versus Trump going after a majority of delegates. That's gone now.
Yeah, because I just want to be clear, because Trump himself said Senator Cruz is just about mathematically eliminated. So true or false, Steve? That is.
Well, if it isn't tonight, it's definitely going to be next week, right? So we have to actually, crunch the numbers. But it's soon. Okay. And there's no question that Cruz is not going to gain many delegates next week, enough to keep him alive in this mathematically. So at some point in the next week, he will be mathematically eliminated from getting a majority. So again, that argument goes out the window, and his people have been saying, no, we're going to get to 1237. Well, that's not going to happen after next week. So what happens? Where do the anti-Trump people go? Now you're dealing with 2 people who cannot actually get the nomination outright, whereas Trump still, even though it's a hard slog, could do it. How does that change the conversation moving forward? It's going to be really interesting to see that.
Right, and that's the fallacy of the argument that Kasich is mathematically eliminated. You should get behind me. I'm Ted Cruz. Now he's mathematically eliminated, so what's the argument? And I think you hit on that, which is we saw the never Trump movement before. We saw just whoever, anyone but Trump type rhetoric. But now you have to begin to wonder, the only way we go to a contested convention is if both Kasich and Cruz can actually pull delegates from Trump somewhere between now and the end of this thing, because otherwise he is going to be the nominee and be able to get those numbers. I don't know if they're going to decide. I mean, people talk about this, and I think this is ridiculous, but if Kasich and Cruz kind of had a little group meeting and said, look, you go campaign here, I'll go campaign here, and we'll try. So. They didn't to this point, but I'm saying now.
They're not gonna. First of all, they never sit around and talk like that, right? No campaign in the history of the earth ever said, hey, let's gang up on somebody and use our resources in a more efficient fashion. The campaign is a simple one from this point on, and it's been this way for a month. And that is, Cruz is going to try and convert as many actual delegates into his people as he can who are already pledged to Donald Trump for the first ballot. That's what he's been spending his time and resources on, not trying to win New York. He stripped Trump of his delegates in Colorado. He stripped him in Florida. He stripped him in Louisiana. He stripped him in Arizona. I mean, in almost every one of these states, Trump actually will not have very many of his own supporters in those delegations as they come into Cleveland for the convention. That's his game plan. He might have used rhetoric about trying to get to the magic number, but it was just rhetoric.
But at the same time,
the actual campaign was executing a very specific plan. Keep Trump from getting to 51, and then get to the second ballot, and boom, all these delegates walk off the Trump line and walk right into the Cruz line.
So the question is at some point, does the bottom fall out of this idea to keep Trump away from getting?
Only if Trump has those specific delegates. And
by the way, but I guess my question is this: what does it happen to Cruz now that the bottom falls out of this idea of keeping him from getting to 50+1% of the delegates? Because obviously, if Trump can't get to that point, right? So we're all going to look at Indiana, right? Yeah. And Indiana is going to be the real question. Do voters in Indiana look at this race and say, you know what? You have 2 guys who can't get the nomination on their own, so maybe we all get behind Trump, or do they continue to protest against Trump and vote for
Trump effort?
Right. Well, that's the question.